6 discoveries that prove time travel might be real. What if I told you time is not what you think it is? That history is not locked in stone, but a fragile thread, bending and twisting in ways we can barely imagine. For centuries, scientists, philosophers, and dreamers have asked, is time travel possible? Most laugh it off as fantasy. But hidden in the cracks of history are discoveries so strange, so impossible, that they whisper of something far greater. Tonight I will show you 6 discoveries, 6 moments where reality itself broke open that may prove time travel is not just theory but truth. And as you watch, I want you to ask yourself, if time could be bent, what would you change? Who would you save? What moments would you return to, if only for one more day? Discovery 1. The Swiss watch in an ancient tomb. It was 2008. A team of Chinese archaeologists was excavating a sealed tomb. Untouched for over 400 years, so the air inside was stale, heavy with the silence of centuries. And then they found it. Not jade, not bronze, not an artifact of the Ming Dynasty, but a watch. A small, modern Swiss watch, its hands frozen at 10:06. The word Swiss engraved in perfect letters. How could this be? The tomb had been sealed since the 1600s. No one had touched it. No one should have been able to place that watch inside. Scientists scrambled for answers. Was it a hoax? A mistake? Or something far more terrifying, that someone, somehow, slipped through time and left behind a piece of the future in the past? Think about it. If you stumbled into the past, would you even notice the small things you left behind? Your phone, your keys, a watch on your wrist? To you, ordinary. But to history, proof of the impossible. Here's the question that chills me. What if this wasn't an accident? What if the watch was left there on purpose? A silent message to us across the centuries, saying we are here. We have always been here. Part 2. The ancient maps that shouldn't exist. Imagine holding a map in your hands. A map that shows the world centuries before humans were even supposed to know it existed. One of the most baffling artifacts in history is the Eerie race map, created in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral. At first glance, it looks like a typical early world map, rough and incomplete. But when modern scientists studied it, they were shocked. This map showed Antarctica, a continent that wasn't officially discovered until 1820. Not only that, but the map depicted Antarctica's coastline without ice, the way it would have looked thousands of years ago before the last Ice Age. How could someone in the 1500s have drawn Antarctica with such detail? How could anyone in the age of wooden ships and compasses know what satellite imaging has only recently confirmed? Some historians argue that perhaps the Ottomans had access to much older maps, passed down from civilizations long forgotten. Others whisper a more chilling possibility, that someone, at some point in history, had already seen Antarctica for themselves, someone who may not have belonged to that time. And this isn't the only map. The Orance map of 1531 and others like it show nearly the same impossible detail. Together, they paint a haunting picture. Either our history is deeply wrong, some traveler out of place and out of time was leaving behind clues for us to find. What if these maps are not mistakes, but warnings? What if the people who made them were trying to tell us something, that the boundaries of time are far more fragile than we think? The thought alone is enough to give you chills, because if even one of these maps is authentic, it means someone saw a world they were never supposed to see. And that is the very definition of time travel. Part 3. The man who showed up with technology from the future. Picture this: New York City, 1950. The streets are busy, cars honking, people rushing across crosswalks. Nothing unusual until a strange man suddenly appears in the middle of the street. Witnesses say he looked completely out of place. His clothes were outdated, his hat was old-fashioned, and the way he carried himself, almost like he was from another century. Within minutes, tragedy struck. He was hit by a car and killed instantly. But what investigators found on him made this case one of the most chilling mysteries in history. Inside his pockets were 19th century coins that were in mint condition money that hadn't even been used in decades. Carried a business card with an address that didn't exist anymore. Even stranger, there were documents and papers from the 1800s, all perfectly preserved. When police tried to trace his identity, they discovered something terrifying. His name matched that of a man who had mysteriously disappeared over 70 years earlier. It was as if this man had stepped directly out of the past and into the bustling streets of 1950 New York. Some skeptics dismissed it as a hoax, but eyewitness accounts, official records, and the strange collection of artifacts tell a different story. This wasn't just a random accident. It looked like a time-slipper person ripped out of his century and dropped into another. If true, this man didn't just defy death, he defied time itself. He shouldn't have been there, and yet he was. Which begs the question, how many others have slipped through the cracks of history without us ever knowing? And this is not an isolated story. Around the world, there are reports of time travelers who suddenly appear, carrying objects that don't belong, speaking languages no one understands, and vanishing just as mysteriously. If even one of these stories is real, it changes everything we thought we knew about time. Part 4. The ancient computer that shouldn't exist, the Antikythera theory mechanism. The year is 1901. A group of sponge divers off the coast of Greece are searching the seabed for sponges when they stumble upon something extraordinary, a sunken Roman-era shipwreck. Among the statues, pottery, and treasure lies a small lump of corroded bronze and wood. At first, no one thought much of it, until scientists examined it more closely. What they discovered would shake history itself. That corroded lump turned out to be the world's first known analog computer, now called the Antikythera theory mechanism, built more than 2,000 years ago. This device contained a complex system of gears and wheels so advanced it could predict solar eclipses, track the movement of planets, and chart lunar cycles with stunning accuracy. To put it simply, this was technology that shouldn't have existed until at least the 14th century, over 1,000 years later. So how could ancient Greeks, without telescopes, satellites, or modern tools, build a machine that even today's engineers struggled to replicate? Some argue it was the genius of forgotten engineers. Others whisper about a darker possibility, that the knowledge came from somewhere rare, someone not of that time. Here's the chilling theory. What if the Antikythera mechanism was evidence of time travel? What if knowledge from the future slipped back into the hands of ancient inventors? A blueprint lost in history, but too advanced for its age. Even mainstream historians admit there's nothing else like it from that era. It stands completely alone in the archaeological record, like a signal from another timeline. And it raises a terrifying question. If such a device existed 2,000 years ago, how much of our history has been influenced, nudged, or rewritten by people who were never meant to be there? Part 5. The photograph that shouldn't exist, the time-traveling hipster. It's 1941. A small Canadian town gathers to celebrate the reopening of a bridge after the Great Depression. Families dress in their finest, men in suits and hats, women in elegant dresses. A photographer raises his bulky black and white camera and snaps a picture that will soon become one of the most puzzling photos in history. Decades later, when this photograph is digitized and shared online, people spot something that shouldn't be there. In the middle of the neatly dressed crowd, one man stands out like a flashing neon sign. He's wearing what appears to be a graphic printed t-shirt. It's unheard of in the 1940s. His sunglasses are far too modern, almost resembling those from the 1990s. And in his hands, what looks suspiciously like a portable camera, decades ahead of its time. The internet gives him a name, the time-traveling hipster. Historians were baffled. Clothing like his didn't exist in 1941. Cameras of that size weren't available, and yet there he was, clear, undeniable, in the middle of history where he didn't belong. Skeptics argue it's all explainable. The shirt could have been an obscure sports sweater, the camera, an old folding Kodak. But those explanations don't quite add up. No one else in the photo looks remotely like him. He is a complete anomaly, a misfit, like someone dropped into the wrong decade. And here's the eerie thought. If time travelers really do blend in with history, perhaps we've already photographed them without ever realizing it. Could this strange man be a careless visitor from another era, or is it just coincidence? Either way, the photo forces us to ask, how many other moments of our history might secretly contain travelers who didn't belong? Part 6. The Man Who Knew Too Much, Andrew Carlson. It begins in 2003 on Wall Street. Stock market was unpredictable, companies rising and falling overnight, investors sweating bullets over every trade. But in the middle of this chaos, one man suddenly appeared and did the impossible. His name was Andrew Carlson. Within just 2 weeks, Andrew turned $800 into $350 million. Every stock he invested in skyrocketed. Every decision he made was flawless, as if he knew the future of the market before it happened. Naturally, the authorities were suspicious. He was arrested for insider trading and interrogated. But what he told investigators was so unbelievable it shook them to their core. Andrew calmly explained that he hadn't cheated, at least not in the way they thought. He claimed he was a time traveler from the year 2256. He said he had traveled back in time with knowledge of which companies would succeed, which stocks would rise, and which technologies would dominate. That's why he couldn't lose. He already knew the outcome. But Andrew didn't stop there. He supposedly offered to reveal secrets of the future to the government in exchange for a lighter sentence. Things like the cure for AIDS, the location of Osama bin Laden, even predictions of future global conflicts. Then just as suddenly as he appeared, Andrew Carlson vanished. There are no court records, no prison files, no trace of his existence after the reports first surfaced. Some insist the whole story was a hoax, an internet urban legend gone viral. But others whispered that perhaps Andrew was telling the truth, and someone made sure he disappeared before he could reveal too much. If his story is real, then Andrew Carlson wasn't a criminal at all. He was a man out of time, caught in the wrong century, armed with knowledge the world wasn't ready for. And that wraps the sixth and final discovery. Closing the doorway to tomorrow. So we've seen 6 stories. Mysterious photograph of a man who didn't belong in his time, a woman who vanished for 4 hours and returned centuries later, a soldier who claimed to leap through time in the middle of war, a medieval manuscript that showed technology before it existed, a man with a watch buried hundreds of years before it was made, and a Wall Street investor who seemed to know the future before anyone else. Each story could be explained away. Maybe they're hoaxes, maybe they're misunderstandings, maybe they're just coincidences. But then again, maybe not. Maybe these are cracks in the fabric of our reality. Glimpses into a truth we're not ready to face, that time isn't fixed. And that travelers walk among us, leaving behind tiny footprints in history. What if every strange photo, every impossible object, every unbelievable witness account isn't just a mistake, but a message, a whisper from the future, reminding us that the story of time is far greater than we imagine? So now the question is no longer if time travel is real, but how many times has it already happened? And maybe, just maybe, one day you'll meet a time traveler too. Final section. The science that proves time travel might be real. We've journeyed through photographs, ancient manuscripts, mysterious artifacts, and eyewitness accounts. But now, let's step away from folklore and look at something even more staggering. Science itself. Because here's the truth: time travel isn't just a fantasy for storytellers or a playground for conspiracy theorists. It's a concept that some of the greatest scientific minds in history have studied, debated, and even proven, at least in part. Einstein's doorway, Albert Einstein, one of the most brilliant men to ever live, didn't just change physics, he changed the way we understand reality itself. In his theory of relativity, Einstein showed that time isn't a fixed, unchanging thing. Time bends, it stretches, slows down or speeds up depending on how fast you're moving and how strong gravity is around you. To Einstein, time wasn't separate from space. It was woven together in a fabric we call space-time. Imagine space-time like a giant sheet stretched across the universe. Place something massive, like the Earth or the Sun, on that sheet, and the fabric bends. That bending is what we feel as gravity. But here's the twist. When space-time bends, so does time itself. Astronauts orbiting Earth at incredible speeds experience time just a little bit slower than people on the ground. This isn't theory, it's been proven with atomic clocks flown in airplanes and satellites. The clocks tick at different rates depending on how fast they move or how high they are. This is called time dilation, which means scientifically time travel already exists. It's not dramatic, not like stepping into a glowing portal, but the principle is there. People in space are moving into the future ever so slightly faster than people on Earth. Black holes, the ultimate time machines. But Einstein's equations went even further. They predicted something terrifying and beautiful. Black holes, A black hole is gravity pushed to its extreme. So strong, in fact, that not even light can escape it. But what's even stranger is what happens to time near a black hole. The closer you get, the slower time moves. To an outside observer, someone near a black hole would seem frozen, like a fly trapped in amber. But to the person themselves, time would feel normal. Some scientists even believe that if you could orbit just outside the edge of a black hole, what they call the event horizon, you could leap into the future. A few hours circling a black hole could equal thousands of years passing elsewhere in the universe. So the idea of time travel, ISNT, just possible it, S written into the heart of the cosmos. Bridges across time, but what about traveling backward? That's where wormholes come in. Think of space-time like a sheet of paper. If you draw two dots on the paper, the shortest distance between them is a straight line. But if you fold the paper so the dots touch, suddenly the distance becomes zero. That's the idea of a wormhole, a tunnel that connects to distant points in space and time. Einstein himself believed wormholes could exist, though he doubted they'd be stable enough for people to travel through. Later, scientists like Kip Thorne, who advised the movie Interstellar, explored whether exotic forms of matter stuff we haven't discovered yet could hold a wormhole open. If wormholes exist, they could connect not only different places, but different times. A doorway between yesterday and tomorrow, hidden somewhere in the vast fabric of the universe. Time travel in the quantum world, and then there's the strange world of quantum physics. In the quantum realm, particles can be in two places at once. They can affect each other instantly, even when separated by vast distances, something Einstein himself called spooky action at a distance. Some theories suggest that quantum mechanics could allow for closed time-like curves loops in spacetime where particles, and maybe even information, could circle back on themselves. In other words, the building blocks of reality might already be bending time in ways we don't yet understand. Scientists who believe it's not just science fiction writers who talk about this. Real scientists, serious, respected men and women, have gone on record saying time travel is possible. Stephen Hawking, one of the greatest cosmologists of our time, once hosted a time traveler party. He sent out invitations only after the party ended, joking that if time travelers were real, they'd show up. None came, but Hawking also admitted in his later work that physics doesn't forbid time travel, even suggested that with the right conditions like traveling near a black hole or using wormholes, it might one day become reality. Brian Greene, a theoretical physicist, explains that traveling into the future is not only possible, it's inevitable. We just need technology advanced enough to push us closer to the speed of light or near intense gravitational fields. Even NASA has explored these ideas, not for science fiction, but to understand the practical limits of human space travel. The emotional truth. Here is the part that touches the heart. If time travel is really in theory, it changes how we see ourselves. It means maybe our past isn't gone forever. It means maybe our loved ones aren't lost to time, but waiting in a place we just haven't learned how to reach. It means maybe, in some strange way, the future is already written, and yet unwritten at the same time. And if the greatest scientists in history say it's possible, who are we to say it isn't? Closing thought. So after everything we've seen, mysteries, artifacts, impossible stories, and now the cold, hard math of physics, the question isn't whether time travel is possible. The real question is this: if we someday unlock the power to move through time, what will we do with it? Will we use it to change the past? To stop our mistakes? To see our loved ones again? Or will we realize that time is sacred and that its flow mysterious and unstoppably is? What gives our lives meaning? Perhaps the greatest proof that time travel is real isn't found in photographs, artifacts, or equations, but in the way we feel time moving through us every single day. Because in the end, every second carries us forward. And whether we like it or not, we are all time travelers riding the current of the universe into a future we can yet see.